Can you name me a single instance of history where there was a revolution that was not precipitated by factional conflicts within the ruling class?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't look too good for the midterms. Cawthorn.
Yeah, so I
Got
wanted to talk to you
unseated.
about that. I wanted to talk to you about how U.S. public opinion works, because liberals have control of the media, and it's not just liberals after Cawthorn. They've been after him for the longest time, but they literally teamed up with the GOP to destroy him. And that's how they removed Trump in 2020. It was the rhinos that teamed up with the Democrats against Trump. And depending on who the Republican nominee is, we might see something like that in 2024. With the midterms, it's tough to say, because did you know that a few months ago, George Soros put in $125 million to defeat Republicans, right? And after that, pro-abortion groups put in $150 million on top of that. So there's a lot of money going into these midterms. And I think I sent you the article in the group chat.
Mods, check the mob chat. But what the fuck was I saying?
We were talking about the midterms and the level of dark money and money in general that's being put into the election that favors...
Yeah, it's really worrying that people can fucking buy into so clearly motivated smear pieces and hit jobs like that.
But did you not know?
No, I didn't. I thought since the MAGA movement and since the whole grab them by the pussy thing, people would be like more critical about the way the media tries to like get dirt on people. And
but then what happened in 2020? They all fell for the anti-Trump lies, right? So that should have been a wake-up call for you.
Yeah.
No offense. I just,
the 2020 midterms when Trump... Yeah, but here's the difference, okay? I felt like Biden's presidency has emboldened Trump's base so much that like they don't believe anything the media says anymore.
Okay. Now, what if it's, I mean, look at, there's so much effort going into getting the pro-Trump Republicans out. They're trying to destroy the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. You know, Trump might not win. I mean, the Trump wing, at least.
If Trump doesn't win, I don't know what I'm gonna fucking do. We're fucked.
Yeah. Did you see my text messages to you guys about this? Because I'm worried about it too. Because, you know, it's going to be either Ron DeSantis or one of the Trumps. And Ron DeSantis is basically trying to...
No, DeSantis would be a fucking disaster.
Yeah, he's GOP establishment, but he's pretending to be populist.
Yeah, he's a fake... people need to know that more. DeSantis
yes, exactly.
is a complete fraud. Completely fake populist, he's like Ted Cruz, completely fake anti-establishment, and he's a super big anti-China hawk. He's a hawk. He's a war hawk.
Exactly.
You may as well elect Marco Rubio. Just because people gotta understand, just because you have a politician talking about how the pronoun shit is cringe and doesn't want the LGBT in schools, that doesn't make them anti-establishment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough. You gotta have more of a. You have to have more of a test, and it's really going to be about whether their agenda puts our country first or puts foreign countries before our country. So the big litmus test about this is Israel. Is DeSantis pro-Israel, or is he going to be a little bit critical to Israel? That's a really big thing. It's not going to be Israel. What about Russia? What about China? What about other countries? Are they going to negotiate? What about NATO, right? What are DeSantis' views on those things? Because that's really what's going to give you more of an idea of whether or not these people are bought out to foreign interests.
Definitely.
Rather than the American
I think the
people.
best litmus test these days is China.
Trump isn't critical of Israel. That's true. But for Trump, it was the Russia shit that's like such a clear dividing line from the rest of the Republicans.
Hello, even the China shit, because he held back on imposing sanctions on China till like 2020, until Pelosi and the Democrats pushed him to do it. He even told Bolton, I don't want to ever hear a fucking thing about Xinjiang or the Uyghurs or Tibet ever again. And he also made a comment saying that, you know, if China invades Taiwan, quote unquote, invades, there isn't a fucking thing we can do about it. Also, Trump, like Nixon, ended aid to Tibet. And it was Democrats who changed that. You know, Congress, of course, out-hawking the White House. They're the ones who made it, who reinstated aid to Tibet.
Oh, there's the super chat. He's saying, what about Rand Paul? I think that would be super based.
All right. So I actually think, okay, hear me out. You know who I think is the best alternative to Trump?
You have never
Don Jr.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, yeah. The guy knows how to speak to people. He's excellent on camera. He's charismatic, and he really understands, the MAGA movement, unlike his sister. I don't know if you know this, but there was like a war of succession going on between the Trump kids.
Kushner.
Yeah, basically. It was between Ivanka, who is just a freaking liberal, who's basically a Democrat at this point, and then Don Jr., who actually is very charismatic on screen. He is more anti-interventionist than his dad, believe it or not. Because I actually looked into this, because it looks like Donald Trump is going to be bogged down in lawsuits, and they're going to find some sort of way to just not allow him to run. So there was a poll in 2021, I think summer 2021, where they polled the Republican base. And number one was Don Jr., and then number two was Ron DeSantis.
You know, I think there's a limit to this, right? Yeah. And I think 2024 and also the midterms, it's going to be a big test. And there's going to come a point where we have to start asking the question of, do we just outright, like, literally live in any other kind of authoritarian state where, like, not even the so-called democratic process is even possible? Because I think I'm not there yet, because it was possible to get anti-establishment people in, but there might be a point where we have to accept that we just literally live in, like, an authoritarian country. Like, it'd be like, you know...
The last anti-establishment candidate that actually had a chance was Ross Perot in the 90s. And then the Democrats...
Like, you notice every time... This is what I'm trying to say this. Every time someone challenges the status quo in any kind of way, there's FCC investigations, like what they're doing with Elon Musk. There's lawsuits that suddenly come up. They're bogged down in lawsuits. Because, you know, everyone's dirty in some kind of way. So suddenly there's IRS tax audits, for example, right? It's like every fucking time someone...
And Elon Musk is genuinely challenging the establishment, not just when it comes to Twitter, but when it comes to Biden's extremely hawkish China policy. He's bullying companies into cutting business ties with China. Elon Musk has resisted, and not only has he resisted, he just recently signed a deal with China's Ganfeng lithium company to mine lithium in the lithium triangle in Latin America. Of course, Biden is working to stop that from happening. But yeah, of course, you know, the anti-Elon Musk is going to be vocalized against, you know, the whole lithium deal with China. So they're going to be able to kill two birds with one stone, talking about progressives. So yeah, Elon Musk does genuinely challenge the bipartisan foreign policy narrative.
Like we're getting to a point where, how do we even... It's so fucked up because, you know, when you're living in an autocracy, you can just say down with the czar. If you're living in an autocracy, you could just say down with the party, or down with the leader, down with the state. When you're living in an authoritarian type of, like, almost explicit fascist dictatorship of the kind that's America, it's like, it's such a brilliant form of authoritarianism because it's decentralized. There's no one to isolate. There's like a million different actors working
There's
in unison
literally
to fuck
only
you
one
over.
way. There's literally only one way. And again, I would like
Remember,
to...
it's YouTube.
Yep, I would like to point to Ross Perot again. The only reason he had the highest poll numbers, he was beating Clinton and H.W. Bush, was because he appeared on the debate stage. And then after that 1992 election, the Democrats and the Republicans, they established the Committee for Presidential Debates and changed the rules to prevent third-party candidates from ever appearing on the debate stage. But that's the key right there.
The debate stage thing?
Yes, that's the
But how would that ever be reversed when they control the rules to begin with?
Money. Billionaire money. That's the only way to reverse it. That if you can get like a Elon Musk type of... Ross Perot was a billionaire, right? That's why he was able to get so far.
Let me put it this way. You're saying something pretty smart right now.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, they have an agenda. I don't care what their agenda is personally. I know they have a weird agenda. They want to have a techno monarchy or something. That's fine. I'm cool with that.
Right.
They can have whatever agenda they want. But in order to do anything, if anyone has any agenda, they need to break the system in some kind of way.
Yeah.
So I think Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, people like that, who are like libertarians, who are like, okay, yeah, let's overthrow the two-party system, let's shake it up and cause chaos some kind of way. That's our hope.
Yes, and I firmly believe that the anti-billionaire rhetoric coming from progressives is to stop any actual changes to the two-party system, because the closest person to do it before was a billionaire, Ross Perot.
Yeah, and keep in mind, guys, we're not talking about the conditions of creating a party. Right. We're talking about the conditions of being able to get people in positions of power, just even at the congressional level.
Yeah.
Not even the presidency. Just how do we get our people into Congress? How do we get our people in the Senate? We need a serious shakeup of the system.
Well, I had a plan. Do you remember I told you about the plan that I came up with in 2016? It was called the American Revolutionary Alliance. Basically, I took examples of coalition politics in parliamentary systems and applied it to, say, U.S. Congress and the presidential election. And it was actually viable. I spoke to constitutional lawyers about it. And
we need to bring that back, Sameera. So we're going to work on it.
I have it. You want to talk about it? We can definitely discuss it, because...
Not tonight, but get it ready.
I know.
And prepare it. Actually, me, you, and Jackson should talk about it, because we should actually get serious about this shit. Like now.
Yeah. Because, look, like, the only people who want to actually break the two-party system are these anti-establishment billionaires, and they're the only ones with the power to actually do it.
But Sameera, they're billionaires. Isn't this a form of betrayal? So stupid.
According to progressives, who always want to be the victim and they never want to win. So, of course, they go with this, like, self-defeating nonsense. It's just
and by the way, if you guys don't believe what we're saying here, I want to pose to you a challenge, and I want to pose to you a question. Can you name me a single instance of history where there was a revolution that was not precipitated by factional conflicts within the ruling class? So we all know that's how the French Revolution happened. It started within conflicts within the ruling class.
We have to take advantage of it.
The Russian Revolution was exactly the same thing. You want to know why the February Revolution happened? Believe it or not, it wasn't a spontaneous revolt of the workers. It was a bourgeois revolution. Why? Because there were factions of the bourgeoisie in Russia and internationally who were against the Tsar. Those contradictions are what toppled the Tsar. So, and then in Mao's case, you had a collapse of the state already, and it was a warlord era. Actually, the CPC allied with some of these warlords, believe it or not. And Mao called them the patriotic bourgeoisie, who were allied with the Communist Party. I don't think that's going to be Musk or Thiel, for anyone who wants to take me out of context and misquote me. But I do think we have to start looking at contradictions within the ruling class if we want.
I already have, and I can give you some details.
No,
George Soros.
I'm aware of these contradictions too, but I'm saying in real time, okay, we have to see that as a crucial part of how we engage in reality.
Are you okay? So, I mean, I've always naturally looked at these things. I assume that other people did. Is that not the case?
Like, people know that, for example, there's contradictions between
sounds like a good podcast
Bezos,
topic.
Musk. You know, that's what you're talking about, right?
I'm talking about the level of political influence, say, Soros has compared to the level of political influence Bezos or Musk.
All right, do you know about BlackRock?
Yeah, I know that they are in like a feud with
Soros.
The Soros wing. Yeah. I know that much.
Didn't I tell you about that?
No, I knew about that. I keep track of this shit, but go on.
Someone is saying Rand Paul ran and made it to the 2016 primaries. I think Rand Paul would be an excellent guy.
Yeah, Ron Paul tried to do it a few times, and it didn't work out.
But Rand Paul actually made it to the primaries.
I think he would be is also based.
You don't remember Ron Paul? Ron Paul was in the GOP primaries.
Not in 2016.
And obviously not, but in 2008, 2012.
He's too old now, isn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, that doesn't say, like, that doesn't really make a difference. Son. Rand Paul was like he was laughed off the stage because, I mean, no one cared about him. Trump was on the stage. Don Jr. is better than Rand Paul. Here's the thing. I've said this to plenty of Republicans. I said that Trump's biggest mistake was filling his administration with GOP establishment figures instead of libertarians. So what, say, Don Jr. would need to do... What Don Jr. would need to do is actually have someone like Rand Paul or Thomas Massie as his vice president and have those libertarians.
Yeah, but what I was trying to tell you is that something happened since 2016 that makes Rand Paul very relevant again. And we can't talk about it on YouTube, but it's something that Trump was very weak on. That's very popular among Trump's constituency, but which Rand Paul was very much at the forefront of.
Okay, what does Ron DeSantis stand on that same thing, same issue that you're referring to?
They don't really trust him because he wasn't as quick as Rand Paul to point it out.
Trump's base likes Ron DeSantis, unfortunately. They really like him. And if we don't get a Trump in 2024, it's going to be Ron DeSantis, unfortunately. Rand Paul just doesn't have the recognition. He doesn't have the power, the level of influence.
Why does DeSantis have so much recognition and not Rand Paul?
Because of COVID. Because of COVID.
But Rand Paul, we can't talk about it on YouTube, but Rand Paul was way more famous because of that.
Maybe on the fringe, right, but in terms of, like, if you look at it from like a mainstream Republican's perspective, a regular American Republican won't know who Rand Paul is, but they know who Ron DeSantis is. You know what I mean?
Fuck.
Like Rand Paul, he is a libertarian. Libertarians don't get as much mainstream media coverage, whether it's Fox News or CNN, as mainstream Republicans do. And until COVID, Ron DeSantis was a mainstream Republican, but he used COVID to posture as this sort of populist MAGA guy. Like, kind of like what Ted Cruz was doing for a while. You remember that? But I mean, everyone saw through that. But the MAGA movement is huge. It's still big. And I'm really hoping that Ron DeSantis doesn't fool Trump's base into thinking he's anti-establishment. If you look, like, go through Don Jr.
The thing that makes me so pessimistic is it's like there's always a way for the people who are already in power to just be in power again. Like, even when Trump got elected in 2016, it was because of Sheldon Adelson.
Okay.
Right? It's like, it almost seems like there's never anyone who actually gets in power and stays there who, like, threatens the system. Like Cawthorn, he got voted out in the primary, the soon
Look at what they tried to do to Matt Gaetz after January 6th. They tried calling him a pedophile. They said that he trafficked young girls or something like that. The allegations all proved to be false, but then, you know, the second those allegations were made, you had all of these people on social media parroting them as if they were already proven true. Right? So that's how narratives are established. I think that's something that you should study, how narratives are formed and how receptive audiences are to certain narratives.
It seems like the anti-establishment cause. It just kind of seems like it's a loser.
It died in 2016. I'll tell you why. Do you remember how much third-party energy there was in the 2016 election?
No.
I
do.
It was pretty significant. Hold on one second. And then in 2018 and then in 2020, all that third-party energy mysteriously died. So what happened between 2016 and 2020 that could have killed off all of the leftist third-party energy that was built in 2016?
Bernie's betrayal?
No, something in 2018 that brought back all of the squad.
Yeah.
The squad. Isn't that crazy? So all it took was the squad and a few like Vogue magazine covers and Netflix documentaries to bring all of that, to kill all of that third-party energy that was built in 2016. We had never seen that sort of third-party energy since like the 90s. It was actually, it had potential to grow into something big.
This is going to be tough. This is going to be so
trust
tough.
me. This is why one of the reasons why I actually got into media, because I felt like I could make more of a difference geopolitically than actually changing the two-party system that's been fortified to such an extreme level.
I'm just throwing the idea out there. I'm not there. I'm still in the whole kind of third-party populism stuff. But I'm just throwing it out there. What if the answer is Takia, where you blend in with the establishment, and right at the opportune time, you knife them right in the back? Like,
I think
you play the long game, and you infiltrate. And then at the right time, when they just give you enough, you just stab them right in the back. Yeah, fuck you, bitch.
Okay. I actually think the anti-establishment billionaire method is the way to go. I'll tell you why. Remember in 2016, the 2015 Republican primaries, everybody laughed off Trump. They said, oh, he has no chance of taking on the GOP establishment. He has no chance of taking over the party. And look what happened. That could be replicated on a national federal level.
If I become too black-pilled and convinced that the American people are too scared to go anti-establishment and they're always going to side with the status quo and they're always going to side with the establishment somehow, then we have to give them what we want and do takia within the establishment.
Okay, well, let's look at which bases have the most anti-establishment populist energy right now.
We know it's MAGA.
That's the key. I mean, there's no hope with leftists because... But
I feel like they're being led like sheep to the slaughter. I mean, all these
kind of like what happened to progressives in 2018.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They're being led like sheep to the slaughter.
Okay, so get this. I just looked up the actual vote. So in 2016, 6% of Americans voted third party, and then in 2020, it plummeted to 1.8%. So it went from 6% to 1.8%. I mean, that's a significant drop.
Yeah.
Because all of the people that decided, oh, I'm never going to vote for Hillary, I'm going to vote for Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, they all voted for Biden in 2020. So there was no like ideological issue with Hillary Clinton, considering the fact that they voted for Biden later on. It was just anger regarding like Bernie getting fucked over that made them go against Hillary. So like they're not ideologically principled. You get what I mean?
Yeah. He's the I know that it's
And I think one of the biggest problems that we're going to face is progressives. Progressives are
we know that they're the vanguard of our enemy. They're
not just that, but if you look at it, the Congressional Progressive Caucus is the largest caucus in the Democratic Party. They've taken over the Democratic Party. They're going to pretend and say, you know, like, oh, we have it, so they can make excuses for not backing progressive causes. But at the end of the day, if you look at the makeup, the ideological makeup of the Democratic Party, progressives are in control.
You know, 2016 had changed everything for me.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm really worried about is I don't know if I've underestimated the extent of the counter revolution for the past 6 years.
I think you have. I can say that
they have really
certainty.
Committed all of their resources and really buckled down to make sure nothing like that could ever happen again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have. And here's what makes it worse. Not only do these progressives have control over the Democratic Party, who have cultural power, media power, etc., but the biggest billionaires, the most influential billionaires, are actively backing their causes and organizing on their behalf. Not just in the United States, but all around the world. That is what we're up against. That's why I just don't think...
It's so fucking crazy, like...
That's why I don't think we can compare it to any other historical situation, because... like...
Only a cult can, like, survive the media machine. A real cult. Like, someone... And it's, when I say a cult, I mean, like, a constituency that is so loyal to one media machine, apparatus, and movement... that any smear job and hit piece that comes from the mainstream media, they'll shut their ears to it and say, nope, we don't believe any of it.
Well, good luck. Good luck with that. That's why Americans are taught to be individualistic. So they have no sense of loyalty. You get it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So, and I mean, you saw with the whole retweet situation, everybody was inclined to like denounce.
Isn't that so despicable and disgusting?
Yeah,
you retweeted one thing and that was enough.
But there was no like
cocksuckers to fold. These pieces of shit.
I was really upset. Like I didn't address any of the denunciations in public, but
people wonder why we reacted the way we did to their response. It's because we're looking at that as a microcosm for like, how would you react if we actually started to get power and challenge the status quo and field candidates and shit, and they do all these hit pieces and astroturf smear jobs. I mean, you would fold and you would crack like an egg, right?
Yeah, exactly the example that you mentioned, right? Like, oh, we need a cult-like movement, you know, they're just going to shut down all of these smears immediately and turn a blind eye to it. But I mean, the Aztec retweet situation was, I think the perfect example of why that's just not possible.
I think it is possible. Maybe not the cult, but I think here's my optimism is that I look at how media works in Russia and China. And I see that people don't really believe in this kind of neutral information chaos, where it's like, everyone knows that behind every stream of information lies an agenda.
Right.
And the problem right now, what's going on in America is that it seems like there's this chaos of streams of information that everyone just assumes is part of one continuous reality. That's not an agenda, but it's just random shit coming from nowhere, right?
I think the biggest problem, maybe I'll simplify it, is that people think that the news that they're getting, I don't know, is actually unbiased. You know,
well, it's
Russia
not
and
just a matter
China,
of unbiased, but it's like they basically have such a profound level of alienation between them and their own individual experience and the information they get from the outside world that they just, it's almost like they see every piece of external information that is slightly legitimated to be like the voice of God.
yeah,
It's like they're isolated,
and
they're alienated and isolated with their own individual continuous experience, and then every other form of information is like the voice of God. So it's like it's extremely easy.
You know, there are actual studies on this that you can read.
I know how
I
it
mean,
works.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the way you put it, but it's actually disappointing.
Well,
but
the thing is,
you know, the
is
worst
that
thing
the optimism
that
I'm getting though is that I don't think it's sustainable. You know,
are you sure?
Yes,
Are you
because a divided house cannot stand, and a divided infosphere cannot stand. Where like we can't just have one neutral infosphere with, because I see it's like, for example, look at just the difference between infrared and anti-infrared people. Two different streams of information. Both of us believe we're correct. I mean, they genuinely think they're correct. We believe we're correct. Who's right? What is the truth, right? Well, the truth is, depending on who you're already loyal to. And also, there is a real truth if you take time to investigate it. They are the liars.
Yeah, we're not taught to investigate and conclude what is the objective truth. But there is an objective truth. And the problem is Americans believe that there is no objective truth.
Yeah.
Another lived experience sort of flaw, if you get what I mean. Right? If everyone, I mean, I guess on a personal level, if everyone has their own lived experiences and they're equally as valid as the truth, there is no objective truth, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's fascinating. It's depressing. I wanted to give you an example. When Democrats and liberals were completely like on a power trip over Twitter, they said, hey, create your own platform if you're upset about getting banned. So conservatives did create their own platform. It was called Parler. And they, all started going on Parler. Parler was growing at a crazy level. And then one tweet from AOC got Parler removed from the App Store, from both the Google App Store and the Apple App Store. And that was the end of Parler. The CEO of Parler, went to court, but of course all of these courts have these liberal Democrat judges, so they threw the cases out. So, I mean, you can't even go to the justice system.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
I mean, it's insane, because, I mean, that was what they were organizing on. Parler. But
I really think that
tweet.
My optimism, though, is that we're going to have to come to this decisive confrontation where there is going to be a different information and media culture. Maybe this will correspond with Web3.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, what's going to happen when infrared gets big and like AOC writes a tweet, hey, like this hosting platform, you should remove infrared from your server or whatever and remove the website entirely.
Yeah, I mean,
what happens?
I know, but I think that's not. So censorship is one issue, but another issue is the kind of misinformation thing where the media can just end anyone. Like, look what they did to Madison Cawthorn, right?
Yeah,
so there has to be
you
a
also
way
have to consider the appetite for news when it comes to Americans. Americans have a very low appetite for news. They don't care about it. It doesn't, like, they see news as not affecting them, so there's no genuine sort of,
crash the company.
I don't know,
It's called
appetite
moral
for it.
anti-realism.
Thank you so much, Chris. Yeah, I mean,
can look into.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. You're right. Most people don't give a fuck about the news at all, but it's like, it does make the difference. What they see it just tips it in that much direction where they're like, oh, this guy's, let's say they look at Madison and go, oh, this guy wears a dress. He must be really weird. And they don't care to investigate it. So that's all they're going to fucking see. Right?
Yeah. I mean, remember
there has to be this thing that happens in American history where people have to somehow become invested in politics in ways that they never were before, or at least understand the inherent relationship between the internet, information, and politics.
Unless there's a massive economic crisis, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I think it will. I think it is kind of inevitable that that will happen, and the reason
it didn't happen during the Great Recession.
No, that's fine. There wasn't even the platform information thing at that point. It was still just mainstream media.
Yeah, it was more open. The internet was more open back then.
Yeah. The thing is that I think it is inevitable just because people are recognizing the contradiction. That contradiction is rearing its head, which is between agendas and streams of information, although
you can't bank on that contradiction being a long-term thing. It's historically
but it is long-term because there's contradictions within the streams of information themselves. There's such a level of discord between what Americans believe that the pretense that there's just one neutral stream of information and one neutral reality, I don't think is sustainable.
But when has that not been the case, even before the internet?
Oh, because it's been hyper-inflamed by the social media and the internet.
I know that, you know, what I found very, I guess, refreshing was that distrust in the media is at an all-time high. It's at the highest it's ever been.
Yeah.
But every time a liberal administration comes into power, those figures change, and trust in media actually grows.
All right, we gonna have to wrap this up because I gotta go to the bathroom.
Yeah, it's super late.
Yeah, but
all right, that was fun. Let's do this again soon.
Yeah, we will. All right, thank you for coming on, Sameera, and
always a pleasure.